Why do superhero batons never get lost? Because they always know how to strike back. Why did the fighting game character go to the doctor? Because he was feeling a bit punchy and needed to check his...
Why don't scientists trust atoms? Because they make up everything.
You are faster than you were last time, and you are getting predictable. Let us see how you handle this move then, because the game ends right here.
Why do skeletons never fight each other? I do not know. Because they do not have the guts to finish it.
Why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves up. That is a lesson you seem to have forgotten in all this chaos.
Why do scientists not trust atoms?
Because they make up everything.
Why do scientists not trust atoms?
I have no idea why not.
Because they make up everything. Why do fighters always look so tired after a battle? Because they are constantly kicking themselves over their mistakes during every single round of the match. Why did the punch get a promotion at work? Because it was really good at hitting its targets and making a strong impact on everyone.
Why do monsters make such terrible detectives? Because they always leave giant footprints at the scene of the crime. Why do we fall, sir? So that we can learn to pick ourselves up. Not today, my friend, not today. Watch and learn. I have been waiting for this moment.
You are fast, but I have seen this move before.
Yeah.
Let us see if you can counter this one. Why do fighters make such bad musicians? Because they always get into fights over the key. That is truly a legendary punchline. Why did the punch get a promotion at work? Because it always hits the target right on time, and it never pulls any of its punches. Why do they always fall for the oldest trick in the book?
Perhaps because they are programmed for strength, not for anticipating the unexpected countermove.
C'est parti. You have truly demonstrated incredible skills and earned the highest honor by defeating all opponents in this intense...
Why did the punch break up with the kick? Because it found the kick was too controlling and just wanted to keep its distance in the fight.
Why did the superhero bring a ladder to the fights? Because he wanted to take the battle to the next level. Why do superheroes always fight in abandoned warehouses? Because it's the only place where property damage doesn't come out of their own personal hero budgets.
Why do superheroes always fight in cities, yo? Because they need something to break when they throw a punch. That is a very destructive habit. Why do scientists not trust atoms? Because they make up everything.
Why do you think you can win against me today? You have no idea what is coming for you now. Watch your back, hero.
Why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves back up. Maybe it is time you finally learned that lesson for yourself tonight, pal. Why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves back up. Maybe you should try that sometime, instead of just getting in my way today. Why did the punch break up with the kick? Because it found out the kick was just going through the motions instead of really connecting.
Why did the martial artist bring a ladder to the fight? Because he wanted to take his skills to the next level and reach new heights.
Why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves up. I think I have had enough of these lessons for one day.
Why did the bicycle fall over?
Because it was too tired.
Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired.
Why do fighters always look for the best gear? Because they want to make sure they have a fair shot at winning the final round.
Why did the punchline go to the gym? Because it wanted to work on its delivery and get a bit more impact during the fight. Why do fighters always look so serious during a match? Because if they smiled, they would probably forget to keep their guard up and get punched. Why do we tell actors to break a leg? Because every play has a costume. That is a good point. I suppose it makes perfect sense in context.
Why did the punch go to school?
Because it wanted to be a knockout in every single class it took during the afternoon session. Why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves back up. You talk too much. Time to finish this fight and end your hero routine.
Why do they always try to fight back when they are clearly outmatched in these kinds of encounters?
Maybe they just enjoy learning the hard way. Why do fighters always make such a racket when they spar? Because they are trying to punch their way into a better conversation.
Why do fighters always look for the best move in the ring?
Because why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves up. You cannot stop what is inevitable. The shadows belong to me now.
Why do tennis players have such a loud game?
Because they are always trying to make a racket.
Why do fighters always look so serious before a match?
Because they are just trying to avoid being the punchline of a very painful joke. Why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves up. But sometimes the punch is just too heavy for the recovery.
Why did the punch get a promotion at work?
Because it was always the first one to land a solid blow in every single meeting.
Why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired to stand up on its own during such an intense and heated street fight.
Why do mummies have trouble keeping friends?
Because they are too wrapped up in themselves.
Why do fighters always bring a weapon to a kick fight? Because they want to make sure they get the last word in before the final round.
Why do fighters never play hide and seek? Because good luck finding someone who always wants to be in the middle of a fight. Why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves up. But I have already mastered the art of standing tall, my friend.